What a day. This morning I heard my childhood star, Kim, and I was sitting up there and crying during 18 minutes. And what a space we have. Have you noticed? We are in a circle, we see and we can be seen. Some quite fundamental aspects of architecture, and it's circular. It's very friendly. I took this picture 17 years ago. I was standing on the top floor of the Tech Gate building in Danube City, on the other side, looking across Vienna. And I was waiting to present my architectural proposal for a jury of 100 people, roughly. And I was very nervous, a bit like here. And then I went into this room. I started off proud in German, in very stumbling German. And after a few minutes, one nice gentleman said, you can speak English. It's good. It's best for you and it's best for us. And then I continued in English, and I sort of grow a bit. And then when you're more comfortable with the language, you start to sense things. And then I started to sense, no, this is not the proposal they like. I could tell. And then in the dialogue that followed, there was a couple of sort of standard questions, and like, do you know what a city is, or have you planned one, or what about the future planning process? Do you have any ideas there? And this combination of sensing that this wasn't well received in this proud city, then I lost everything, and then I said, I had to be honest and transparent, and I said, no, I don't know how to plan a city really. Do you? And then planning process. Well, I have, I've tried, but and it actually didn't help when I showed them this. I took this little sketch with me, the circular here. I had this mounted on a board behind my back, and tried to, do something better out of this situation. And what does it show? It's some kind of something in the circle, something in the core or park, and it's radiating, trying to reach out a little bit. And of course there were some perspectives, like always in competitions. And it showed just very simple things, some taller buildings, a university, a tram, a couple of urban blocks. But, no, it wasn't probably that good. And then I went home to Stockholm and felt quite bad. I really screwed it up, I was sure. But then, a couple of days later, someone called from the jury and said, would you like to come down to Vienna for a chat? And then I traveled down again, and guess what? I got the assignment. And yeah. And traveling then back to Sweden again, and I started to realize what they were looking for. They wanted a new city in the city for 50,000 inhabitants in one, if not the most beautiful city in the world. Of course. Dating back 2,500 years or whatever, And what is a new city? How do you start? There were sketches, of course, and what does it really lead to? Because a city produces patterns in the ground for decades and centuries and even more, as we see. So it is somehow quite heavy responsibility, or you can at least tell yourself that. And I was just comparing to what we've heard today and looking at just 10 years ahead or 100 years ahead. You know, I need to consider my grandson Lou then. Because what's his retirement like in 2105 if he gets old? You know, what's his life about? And, you know, maybe he's strolling around at the Antarctic coastline collecting sea tulips with his grandkids, you know, to global warming, or maybe swimming around in some kind of metaverse looking at cute cats. You know, poor little Lou. So, but guess what? We know a lot about cities. It's one of the most ancient structures if we think about modern history. We know what a good space is. We know what a well-functioning city is. We know the spaces, we know how to interact, and we know it a lot from the past. And these things we know, they are our experiences, what we have learned to see, the relationships and space, dreams upon which we can act. And one of my first, I'll tell you just a few things about my experiences, which formed me as an architect. The first one was actually in 1982. I was on a school trip traveling to Leningrad, the city of structure, order, planned by a Tsar in early 1700. And we stayed at the Hotel Astoria, a beautiful one, and very close to this place. And what was so amazing here was that it wasn't accessible for foreigners, of course, to get into these hidden spaces. But we managed to sneak behind the backs of our guides and a polite word of KGB. And we went into one of these courtyards, this more or less, and we could walk for hours in there. It's a secret world, a city in the city, freedom of speech, people lived together, worked together. It was an entire community of its own. And on the outside, these big boulevards, the structure, you know, the power, the politics. But these boulevards, they were actually then bridging the various small communities. Another very defining moment in life was to see, as a child, the Swedish suburbs growing up. Destroyed inner cities and the suburbs replacing the life of cities. And what are they compared to this, where we are, or Leningrad or St. Petersburg nowadays, of course. But you know, you can see the remains of it. It's a structure which is very, very closed. And the boulevards here, they circulate around. You pass by, not through, which is so fundamental to urban life. You're looking at other examples like New York, very dynamic, unplanned, planned. And you know, how do you get to Chinatown from Little Italy? You walk through, not around. And this is one of the most ancient experiences or knowledges we have about cities. I take you to Seestadt. And you can see already here, it's sort of coming appearance to life. And Seestadt was actually part of a much greater idea already in the 90s, a financial model, how to pull life or draw life through the northeastern parts of the city into something which at that time was a symbol for the end station of U2, the metro line. So there was already some kind of organism living at the time. And 5 years after the competition, the two things were already there, the lake, the groundwater lake, and the metro line. But here we are again. What was it? How were the preconditions for this project? It was sealed to the north with a planned highway, sealed off in a way, east and west, through green corridors to one-family housing areas and to the south and industry. Was it connected? No. And here, 50,000 people. Looking at it now, it reveals quite a lot from the first sketch I showed you. You still remember it, this kind of circle. And all the time, from day one, this yellow area was my target, my personal dream, because I knew that if the surrounding areas wouldn't be part of the scheme or the city, it will fall down in the long run. Very dangerous. And now you can see how Seestadt sort of was actually planned from day one, secretly searching for friends towards the periphery and onwards. Not all of these spaces, not all of these streets or paths will be realized in the future, maybe, but they are there. There are platforms for future life of extension, for friendship. You can see in the next 10 years, this is probably what's happening. And you can see another layer of this city structure, something that reminds you on Leningrad maybe. You can see that there are sub-streets and sub-layers in getting through the big ones, the big arteries, and creating the friendly and the mysterious parts of this structure. And all in this everything that really matters in the plan crashes into the center, the metro line, the lake, the parks, these radiating streets are searching the center in order or actually to maximize the presence of life. Because there's very little life we can use when we plan new cities or new extensions of cities. So it has to work and provide the continuation or the opportunities for life. Looking at one of these radial streets, you can see in the background is a little bit of the park, the lake, the U-Bahn, and you can see that this quite formal street starts to touch other things, other spaces. For example, to the left-hand corner of the previous picture, you can see this tiny sub-street, friendly, mysterious, you can get lost. So all these types of elements are a vital part when you try to create urban space from scratch, because it is artificial in the beginning. And that is a super problem in urban design. You can see this image, for example, again, a school starts to interact with a Leningrad kind of block and shapes spaces and interacts with the courtyard indirectly. Some courtyards are very open and airy, but most of them are actually a bit closed in a traditional sense. They are three-dimensional, close to home, where you interact in a different manner. And also, of course, a fundamental part of Seestadt is the urban block itself, something which defines the very thin boundary between the public and the private, the inside and the outside. And as you can see, the ground floors are raised 4 meters, maybe sometimes 5 meters, to allow this kind of unknown aspects of the future, shops to occur. Do you think they occurred? Do you think they came? Of course they do. And these shops, these ground floors, this mediating space between the inside and outside starts to create the new stories for a new city. You know, hopefully one day, Seestadt will become a very dynamic part of the city. The arms will have reached out, the boundaries will be gone. And you remember the questions I received. When I said no to everything, I came to understand a few years after the competition that nearly all the 9 finalists said yes. Yes, I know how to build a city. I know the planning process. And it all becomes so apparent in a way that we know a lot, but we never know how things end. And if I'm very honest and open-hearted about the discomfort of not knowing, then many things will happen. Many things happen when you are familiar with that feeling that you don't know really the future. Then we dare to provide rather than decide. And then we pave the floor for the future. We see the patterns and we pave it, and we become the stepping stones for the unborn. And to me, that is planning for the unknown, really. Thank you.